Hello everybody, this is ChibiJC of YouTube. So I kinda want to do a video where I talk about the lessons I learned when doing a weekly series. Yeah, I know, videos that kinda tend to give out critiques slash advices slash tips, they tend to have a bit of a bad reputation. Then again, with the videos that I've seen that came before this one, they tend to get a little bit more on the extreme side, at least the ones I've seen. So I thought to make a video like this, but it should be more on the positive side of things, you know what I'm saying? This will be the video that will hopefully give out some helpful tips. Because honestly, after the stuff that I learned over the course of 4 times when I made a weekly series, with one of them just being on my own, no one was hosting a challenge around that point, I either want to give people something to do, or make sure that they don't make the same mistakes that I've made. I will give out a bit of a timeline for all the lessons I've learned, so hopefully some peeps at home will follow along. This is also for those that want to make a weekly series but don't really want to identify their work as a Fanime. I mean, for those in the Fanime community, this is also for you, but this is also for those that don't really want to identify their work as a Fanime. This is for those that just want to make a weekly series in general. With all that said, let's get started in the chronological order, starting with the days of SCFD. Lesson number 1. Do not make a weekly series while you're in a daily roleplay that is hella active, or vice versa, depending on your priorities. I'm sure some of you might have heard this story plenty of times, especially if you've seen my Shadow Slayers video, but if not, let's do the rundown, shall we? So, back when the 2015 challenge was around, which was hosted by Evan, I decided to make a series called Sour Candy Filled Donuts. It's meant to be a fun little series that's related to Bad Luck Tuesday. And if you know me, you know that this is done in a visual novel style format. So with all that said, you would think that I would do well in making a series, especially considering the fact that I've voiced every single character myself. Well, the thing is, around that time, I was also in a roleplay called Shadow Slayers, hosted by my friend Fanime, and guess what? I was very active in that roleplay as well. Don't get me wrong, I fucking love the RP, and I also love Sour Candy Filled Donuts, but oh my goodness. The fact that I was doing both at the same time, I even question on how I'm even human. Needless to say, it was kind of an insane choice. And heck, some of the things that happened in Shadow Slayers did affected the production of Sour Candy Filled Donuts. At least with some episodes. And I was not the only one that was roleplaying in Shadow Slayers and doing the weekly challenge as well. Few other people did it. One that was insane enough to do both at the same time and was able to complete their series, and one did drop from the challenge, which, you know, fair. But yeah, I highly advise not doing the same thing that I did with that notion. If you are curious about Shadow Slayers, I highly suggest watching the video that I made on it a while ago. Lesson number 2. Make sure you are motivated enough to do a weekly series. It was during a time when Nalpico, now known as Sick Meter, has hosted the 2016 weekly challenge. I wanted to make a fun, feel-good series known as Maroku's Adventures. And unlike with Sour Candy Filled Donuts, I at least have VAs behind it, so at least there's that. However, it was during the days when 2016 was just kind of been draining me. It was also during the days when the good RPing experience is starting to go down the drain just a little bit. Not to mention, I was also feeling a little bit depressed, so yeah, it was not a good time for me to do a weekly series, at least in my book. So, I was going to say this. As I said, make sure you are motivated enough to do a series. Because if not, your series may end up in limbo, kind of like what happened with Maroku's Adventures, which I'm planning for it to get out of said limbo. There's not much else to this advice, just make sure you're motivated, okay? Okay! Next lesson. Lesson number 3. You don't have to wait for someone to start a challenge. In fact, lesson number 3.5, it can be your own thing. You might have noticed that out of anything that I do that's part of a weekly basis, Nemamiya the Chaotic Hero stands out like a sore thumb, in a way. And I mean that in the sense that there was no weekly challenges around that point. I just did Nemamiya because I could. Referring to it as a fanime for quite a moment, it was during a time when the fanime community was kind of, well, dead. Sure, there were some people that were pumping out episodes, but it was like very rare on that point. So I decided to make Nemamiya just because I wanted to pump out content. And I pump out said content until the finale. So really, if you want to do a weekly series but there was no challenge, you really don't have to wait for a challenge to start. You know what I'm saying? I say just do it. And lesson number 4, and this is actually the most important lesson. Unless you have everything planned out ahead of time, do a more simple series instead of a series that has a grandiose plot for a weekly series. During the 2019 weekly challenge, hosted by yours truly, I decided to make a series known as 7 Guidances to Wishful Safety. Despite some hiccups, it was going good for quite a while. However, upon that hiccup, as well as another thing that there has the finale to be on hold until everything is all set up, I realized that maybe it's not a good idea to have an action type series as a weekly series. Like, no, seriously. Unless you have everything planned out for the action scenes, or have a team of animators/artists helping you out, doing an action series as a weekly series will be a mistake. But don't worry, we'll get to some points I've made around that point when we get to the next point I want to make. At least, after the next point I make. Hopefully these tips will help you out, especially those of you that just want to pump content out up the wazoo. Now, if you are the type of content creator who proceeds to do quality over quantity, here's a lesson that I learned for doing something like that. If I want to do quality work, don't do a weekly series and work at your own pace while giving yourself a deadline of some sort. Last part might be optional. If you want your series to be in quality work, I think it'll be better to put your series under these categories, as in like A, bi-weekly, B, monthly, or C, bi-monthly. I say these 3 things because really it depends on the person's own pace, as well as the type of series they're doing. After all, not everyone is Hayao Miyazaki, and not everyone is Hanna-Barbera. Again, it depends on one person. That said, if you are one of those people that do quality over quantity, and if you want to make a weekly series, then really all I can say is plan a lot of things ahead of time. You name it. Scripting, getting your VAs via scouting for voice or doing a casting call, putting the audio together with whatever audio editing software you use, doing the visuals, whether it's editing or animating, and all that jazz. Yeah, I'm serious. They all need to be planned out ahead of time. Especially if you want a good quality series and also making it a weekly. I know, that sounds like a lot. Especially if you don't have a team with ya. Which brings me to my next point. Unless you are okay with doing a lot of these things on your own, it's best to have a team behind your back, whether it's a team of your friends or other artists that are familiar with you. With a lot of the shows that we watch, as well as a lot of the movies that we watch, they're all not done by one person. There is a whole studio behind these shows and movies and whatnot. Granted, a lot of these series are a brainchild of one person, but you gotta remember, there's a whole team behind them, so can you really blame me for saying that it's best to have a team behind your back? I'm gonna go into more detail about it in a later video, but for now, let's get to my final thoughts on summarizing everything. So, bottom line, if you want to pump out episode of a series on a weekly basis, make sure that you A, are not in a forum roleplay that is hella active when doing it, B, you yourself are motivated enough to continue on with the series up until the finale, and C, don't have a grandiose plot unless you have everything planned ahead of time. And hell, as I said in the Lesson 3 section, If you're eager enough to pump out a weekly series but there is no challenge, you can still do it. Nothing is stopping you. That's what I did with Nemomia. If you are one of those people that want to do quality over quantity, don't do a weekly series. Go for the recommended deadlines and see what happens. However, if you want to do something that is both at the same time, plan every single thing ahead of time, and if doing it by yourself is too much, set up a team to help you. Anyways, I hope what I said today will be very helpful. I know that the videos I've seen before this one tend to be on the more extreme side. And sure, while there is some good points in those videos, the fact that it can go on the extreme side, it will throw people off and might be even demotivating for them. So I hope that this video was not extreme for y'all, and if it is, I deeply apologize. Anyways, whatever you plan to do, whether you want to make a weekly series, do a series that's in high quality, or both, I hope you take some of the tips I put out to heart. And with that, I say, good luck making your series, fellow content creator. This is Chippy JC of YouTube, signing out. Goodbye!